British Prime Minister Edward Heath owned 5 yachts called Morning Cloud throughout his 10 years as a keen offshore racer. Each of his yachts had their fair share of wins, although by far the most successful was the second. Built with advice from Arthur Fox, the second Morning Cloud was to be 41 feet long and built at Clare-Lallows boatyard in Cowes. Olin Stevens came up with some ideas, and after many discussions about the design of the boat, building began. First launched in April 1971, this unique boat won many ocean races, including the Admiral's Cup that year. After much success in the early 70s, Edward Heath and his team wanted to move up in the ocean racing world, and a new Morning Cloud was built, in which Heath hoped to win the 1973 Fastnet race. The second Morning Cloud was sold on and renamed Opposition. Opposition has undergone a complete refurbishment at Clare-Lallows boatyard in Cowes over the winter, and our cameras have been there to capture the details.
The boat arrived here in late September. The first job we had to do was get the mast, unstep the mast. We then started to take off all the sheathing on the bottom, because that has all started to delam away from the bottom of the boat. That was stripped off, and then the bottom had to be sanded. It was then brought into the shed, into the space it's now in, taken off its cradle, shored up. We photographed all the fittings and fixtures on the deck, because they all have to come off, because we're going to rip the deck off and relay a new teak deck. So all the fittings had to come off, so we photographed them so we know exactly where they go back. Made a deck plan of where all the fittings and fixtures went. And then we started to look at the planking.
When Morning Cloud was originally built in the early 70s, boats of this size were generally built with just one layer of planking. During this renovation, it was decided that 2 layers would be better, as it would invariably strengthen the hull of the boat. The new planks are African mahogany from a single tree trunk and seasoned for more than 4 years. The planks were removed 3 at a time, so the boat would keep her shape while the planking was done. But after removing the first few original planks, they realised that there was a serious structural problem. All of the frames which give Morning Cloud her shape had begun to delaminate. The only way around this problem was to inject epoxy resin into the ribs between each lamination and then cramp them up, one at a time. This process has been complicated.
Once we've got planked up so far, we then had to take off 3 more and then again inject the ribs so far up, and then we could carry on planking, and that has been the process all the way up through, which made it a little bit longer than it should have been.
Meanwhile, just before Christmas, in another shed, the 50-foot aluminium mast, boom and spinnaker pole had been stripped and repainted and were being put back together before being stored for the winter. The whole of the blister deck was to be replaced. The original deck was teak laid on plywood and was glued and nailed to the deck beams. This had to be completely ripped off.
So once we'd stripped the deck, we then stripped the deck beams off. They were cleaned up because they were painted white. So we've now cleaned them up and they're going to be varnished as they were originally, and they are made of spruce.
Removing the deck and the beams left the structure of the boat unsupported. In order to support the boat while this work was going on, a wooden frame was constructed in and around Opposition. Once all the deck beams were out and the hull's planking was in place, the gunnels could be glued in. The boat was originally built without a gunnel, with the deck beams cut into a plywood web at deck level. Gunnels on wooden boats originate from the days when warships were built with a strengthened plank at deck level to accommodate the extra stresses imposed by the heavy artillery. Now gunnels are built into boats to reinforce the structure, and Morning Cloud will no doubt benefit from this extra support. Spruce has been used because its long wooden fibres bind together to give it great strength while being relatively lightweight. Each deck beam joint was hand-shaped, taking 4 people a total of 22 hours to put the 44 beams into place.